Modern parenting is failing, and the worst part is most parents don't even know why. Nowadays, the buzzwords are gentle parenting, where you actually have a 10-minute conversation with the child on why they should or shouldn't do something. We've been told to be more gentle, more understanding, more hands off, but the results? Skyrocketing entitlement, anxiety, and a generation that is sometimes struggling with basic life skills. So today, I wanted to highlight the main reasons why I think modern parenting is failing and what I would do to fix it with my own experiences in over 19 years as a parent. Number one is we have to bring back discipline and accountability. Now, I'm not talking about the 1950s belting of the children, discipline and accountability. I'm talking about clear guidelines. Children are born and challenged constantly. But if we allow them to constantly cross the line and don't set appropriate boundaries, then children don't know how to act. Most importantly, we don't establish any level of fear. There are times where you have to be able to say one time, don't go out into traffic, because if they did, they could die. And if they don't listen to you and they constantly just push back and pull away and do whatever they want, and we just allow them to follow their feelings, they're not going to be successful. And most importantly, you're not going to be successful at making sure they're protected. See, accountability and discipline is more than just giving them the guidelines to succeed. It's also about protecting them. If a child does not listen or hear some of the most important things, they are at risk for getting themselves in trouble or doing something that could hurt them. And my number one job as a father and our number one job as parents is to protect the children until they're able to protect themselves. Yes, we have to love them. Yes, we have to pay attention to their feelings, but we can't lead with feelings. Feelings can be a part of it, but it can't be all of it. There has to be discipline, guidelines, and most of all, accountability. Now, that means that there are right and wrong times to yell out. There are right and wrong times to run away. There are times that they are not supposed to be the center of attention. Really important. And it's not hard. But the reality is, if we're only focused on their feelings, then we're never teaching them when it is appropriate and inappropriate to do certain things. And they get to school, and guess what happens? They don't understand why the teacher doesn't give them 100% of the attention, why they're not the most important person in the world and the main character in every story. Now, I don't think that we should in any way take away the love and gentleness that comes with kindness. I think there are definitely better ways to hold children accountable and to be disciplined and to also make sure that they feel loved along the way. But man, I want to make sure they're protected. And if we keep following only our feelings, we're going to have a lot of kids that don't know how to act in the right scenarios in the right places, and it's not protecting them in the best way. I saw Shannon Sharp on the podcast Shay Shay the other day with Andrew Schultz, and he said he grew up on a farm and his grandfather was super hard on him, and the reason was they were on a farm, and one wrong mistake, he could die on that farm. And so it was very important for him not only to listen, but to listen once, not to listen 10 times, once. And this is something that we have forgotten. This is something that it's not in every situation that's mandatory, but that is a very powerful story of why accountability, discipline, and boundaries really matter. The second thing is we have to give up our need to protect them so much that they can never fail. Failure is so important. They've got to fail. They've got to fail on the soccer field. They've got to fail at school. They have to fail at lots of things. And if we continue to protect our kids to the point where the teacher is never right, none of their friends could be right, they're never making a mistake, and it's always them that's right, we're building monsters, not adults and good humans. The reality is kids have got to fail. And we as parents have to allow it. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I hate watching them lose. I can remember watching my son in a big game not make a penalty kick and how hard I felt when they lost that major tournament game, and he came to me and just started crying, and I remember feeling how much I wanted to take that pain away from him. And these are the things that parents feel. I mean, we don't want them to go through what we went through, but sometimes we try so hard to protect them from any level of failure that we're actually impeding them from growing up, from actually achieving the very things that made you who you are today. Now, doesn't have to be as hard. It doesn't have to be as crazy. You don't have to you don't have to learn the hard way on everything, and you don't have to teach the hard way on everything. But the truth is, failure is always just a lesson learned. It's something that's going to get you closer to success. And the more comfortable children get with failure, and the more they realize they're not the center of the universe, the more successful they'll become later when they go get their first job. The third reason is parents are making themselves the main character in the story. Parents nowadays are so much closer to their children. We do so many extra things, and it's not just mom doing all these things, it's mom and dad. And the more we do with them, the closer we get, the harder it is for us to remove ourselves as the main character in the relationship. Sometimes it's difficult for us to look at them as anything other than ours. But if we want them to become something special for themselves, they have to become who they were meant to be. And that cannot happen if we are holding them down as us being the most important people. So, what does that mean? That means we have to let go as they get older. And it's really important. I think research shows that from 0 to 4 years old or so, it's okay to be the main character in the story. It is imperative to be their most important person. But after a certain point in time, we have to slowly start to step away and let them grow up. Now, being in the generation that we had immense freedom in the early high school years and into college, I mean, I did so many things that my children did not and do not do, and I don't want them to repeat those things. At the same time, I also have to remember the value of that independence and how quickly I grew up and how fast I learned things. I drove early. I drove often. It's very easy for me to take the kids places, especially when the first one's gone, and now I realize how quickly it goes. You can become very attached to holding on to what was, but we have to remove ourselves as the main character in the story. We are a parent. Our job is to lead them to become great humans, to lead them to the next chapter of their lives, not to be the main character in every chapter. One day they need to get married, have their own families, and it's mandatory that we have stepped back and allowed that to open up and for them to prosper. And so I really think this is a challenging place, but I also understand how easy it can become because there are many a times where I wish they had more time for mom and dad. And it's a natural feeling, but it's one that we have to feel and deal with and move on instead of making them feel completely like they're attached to us because eventually we start to hold them back from their true success. A major challenge in modern parenting today that seems to be increasing by the year is the number of fatherless homes. And this is a major challenge. Frederick Douglass said, "It's better to build strong children than to repair broken men." And this is such a great quote, something I've leaned on so long in my life because it's really important to remember that we need to build children to be strong, and they are strongest with dual parents. They are strongest with mom and dad. And that doesn't always mean as they were born. Mom and dad aren't always present, and every family situation could be different. But a male, strong relationship is really important to young men, especially, but to young women as well. And as we look at the role of dual parenting, we have to get away from this I don't need mom or I don't need dad, I don't need a man. Like that is so ridiculous. The children need both. And so, whether that's grandparents or uncles or aunts or whatever, the role of the single parent is one where it's not always a choice, and we understand that. I understand that. But the truth is, don't forget what the child needs. Modern parenting is sometimes too fixated on one parent being enough. It's not enough. It's never enough. They need a village. They need their grandparents, their aunts and uncles, every single person that loves them, that wants to make them better, that wants to help them achieve. These are all the things that make us who we are. Personally, I would not be who I am if I didn't have a great mom and a great dad, but I also had great uncles and a lot of great aunts that helped raise me. I had great parents and grandparents that were a part of my past and my present that helped define me as a human. I watched my grandfather's faith be a leading indicator of something that I wanted to attain, something I wanted to follow. I watched my dad's discipline be something that I admired my entire life. My mom's creativity. These are all things that when I look back, I'm so grateful for all the influences that I had, but we need to make sure we're giving that to all these children. And whether that's the Boys and Girls Club or Big Brothers and Big Sisters or something that always isn't in the traditional family, there are ways to find that. And there are reasons why we do it. Number 5 is probably the most dangerous, and that is the overly connected generation, the iPad kids with disconnected parents. I know you've all been to restaurants and you've seen a family of 5 and every single person's on their phone or device. I know that you have children that you know that can't go anywhere without the device sitting right next to them, and they have to completely disassociate. This is something that I understand is a powerful tool when used correctly and in the right settings can be very valuable. But I also believe it's something that when it's used too often, it can completely teach kids how to disconnect from the world and to only connect to a device. They need to be connecting to us. They need to be connecting to that extended family we talked about. They need to be able to separate from the devices. And if we raise them to be so connected, it could be a major challenge. I also think that for everything that's good, I mean, I love the cell phones. I love the iPads. We watched movies. It gave us alone time. There were definitely things that we did that I think were very valuable and helpful to the children. I also think that we did not go into restaurants and bring the iPad with us so they watched a movie. They sat and they ate dinner with us and we talked. It wasn't always easy. It certainly was sometimes frustrating. But the reality was, my boys can hold a conversation at a dinner without a device. You might have to tell them to put it down occasionally because they are teenagers. But the reality is, they were taught the right way. And I think it's really important that we actually focus on creating connected humans, connected to our families, connected to each other, connected humans, because they'll be stronger when they get older. When they struggle, the connections with humans help them get through the challenges. The devices don't. The devices lead them to things that don't represent who they are, what they stand for. They can be influenced and challenged in ways that aren't always healthy. But true connection comes from us as parents and making sure that we don't let them get to that point where they disassociate and create that fake world. So I know it's a challenge, but it's definitely something that if we're more attuned to it, we can really make a difference in these kids' lives. At the end of the day, parenting is imperfect. I understand that, and everybody that's a parent understands it. Every single child will look back on their lives and understand that their parents did the best possible job they could, hopefully. And when they do, they'll have a great grace about parenting in general. There is no perfect answer. There is no perfect parent. All we can do is the best that we can. But if any of these things resonate, if any of these things are things that we can work on to make the next generation stronger, better, and not fail, I think it's worth talking about. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you liked it, there's more where this one came from. Click here and enjoy some more.